Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Abez Show with me, Abe, your host. With me today is Tamer. Tamer and I go way back. Hi, Tamer. How are you?
What's up, Abe? How are you, buddy? Nice to see you. Thanks for having me on the show.
No, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, and it's really weird how we clicked. You know what I mean? I posted something on Facebook, and you're like, "Yeah, I want to be on it," and I'm like, "Definitely."
Yeah,
So
I don't think you were. I don't think I was. I was like, oh, you want to be on it? Sure, I'll be on it. But I mean, yeah, we do go way back, and it's funny because I look at you as one of the people that I've watched. I've watched you grow seriously. Like we're talking maybe 13 years and possibly more. So I've watched you grow, and every time we meet up again, there's a new aspect to Abe that's kind of like, oh, I do this. I'm like, oh wow, that's new. I didn't know that. And then we ended up talking about it. So I think in that respect, we both look at each other, and every time we meet up, we're like, "Oh, you're doing that now? Okay, that's great. Yeah,
yeah, I love it, and I love how our conversations are. Even if we don't. I know you're in Toronto right now, and I'm in Dubai.
yeah,
And even if we don't talk to each other for like a year, and then we
yeah.
literally continue where we stopped, which is what's so nice about my relationship with you. You're always up to something always super cool too, but
Oh, thanks.
so I want you to tell my audience who is Tamer, and tell me more about you, please.
All right. So I should know how to do this by now. My name is Tamer Gargour. I'm a digital media content creator. I still don't know whether or not that's going to be the definitive statement of who I am and what I do. But the fact of the matter is, there's been so many broad strokes that's kind of where I've gone to. Up till actually yesterday, I renewed my signature on my Gmail, and I included a few new logos, and I changed it from radio host to content creator to just digital media content creator. So the fact of the matter is, I have a law degree from back in the day, never ended up using it, did the family business for 7 years, stepped out of that, didn't know what was going to go on, and then turned out that actually I'm pretty good at speaking in public. So I got a little temporary gig in the radio of almost not again 7 years ago, and slowly that turned into a morning show, and slowly that turned into a managerial decision, a position, and up until basically a year and a half ago, I made this switch and I moved from Jordan to Toronto to get my master's degree in digital media from Ryerson University. And COVID happened. I said, okay, what am I going to do? I can't be a content creator if I'm not creating content. Okay, what am I doing well? Okay, I know how to interview people, and I know how to put together certain things. So I started my own show, and the show is a Twitch show. It's called the T Show, and as well as trying to do podcasts, and as well as trying to diversify my skills and work on things that I can do. So I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, but ultimately, if I had to say anything, I would say I'm a digital media content creator.
Wow, that's awesome. Actually, come to think about it with what you've been saying, and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense now. So because I think see you in every one of these phases of your life. So I think I even see you do TV once as well, if I'm not mistaken, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, acting was one of the things. As again, if you had asked me 5 years ago or 7 years ago, I would have said I'm an actor, I'm a musician, but those are part of who I am inside me, not necessarily something that I do as a career, but they've definitely helped bolster the ability to become a content creator by having the theatrical background, by having the musical background. So while before it may have been like, this is who I am, at this stage in my life, this is part of who I am, and these are part of the tools that I use to be able to produce the things that I do.
Yeah, very well said. I have to say, it's very well said. It's honestly, it's the tools and the network, in my honest opinion, what really defines you. If you're surrounded by footballers, guess what? You're gonna eventually play football. You know what I mean? Maybe not in my shape right now these days, but
Let's
that's
say I'm not going to be very good at it, but I'll try.
no,
Sure.
but you'll still talk the lingo, right?
Right.
So okay, I want to ask you a couple of questions. So personally, I didn't know that you had a law degree. And
Yeah.
what the hell happened there?
So anybody who knows my family knows that Gargour is a name which is synonymous with Mercedes-Benz in the Middle East region. We've been the sole agents for Mercedes in Palestine, Lebanon, Jordan ever since 1943. When it actually happened back in Palestine, we were the first family to import a Mercedes-Benz from Germany. We sent them. We were Clementine. We were orange farmers, clementine farmers. We sent Mercedes-Benz a shipment of clementines, and in return they sent us the first ever Mercedes-Benz to Jaffa in
Wow.
Palestine.
Yeah.
And from that day, we've become sort of synonymous with Mercedes-Benz as the name. So I was expected as the third and final brother and the youngest son. After my two elder brothers ended up going in and doing music, all of basically the pressure lay on me. I wanted to be the good son. I'm like, yes, father, yes, I'll do the family business. Of course. What's the best way to do it? Law degree. Law degree covers everything. It'll teach you everything you need to know. So I did. I went to the UK and I got my law degree. And I hated it. I thought that it was going to be something, justice for the masses, and now I'm going to be able to use my powers for good. It doesn't work like that at all. That's not how it works at all. So I was very I was disillusioned by it. I came back. I never ended up using it except maybe here and there, looking at a few contracts, being like, no, we need to change the to when instead of and semantics like that. So that's why I got my law degree. Of course, on the inside, as an 18-year-old kid, I didn't have the courage or the experience to tell my father that's not what I want to do. I didn't know, right? In fairness, I didn't know, but there was a gut feeling that I wanted to do theater, or I wanted to do drama, or I wanted to do music. But I felt it was my role as the third son and the final son who had the ability to potentially take over my father's footsteps,
Mm.
that I had to do it. And I did try. Like I did give it a 95% try. There was that 5% that always holds back, but that's where the law degree comes from.
Okay. 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 And and by the way, just as a side note, my first startup in Jordan, my first client was Gargour.
Really?
Yeah, we built the first call center for Gargour. I don't remember
Oh.
remember because now it's 15 years ago. I could tell you some of the funny stories that happened on some of these calls when we were
Uh-huh.
when we were calling some of the customers, because obviously some of the records were really outdated, and
Right.
and we would call people and they say, yeah, he passed away 13 years ago, and they'd be like,
Oh.
ooh, sorry, what I mean, like we had a lot of we have still some of the recordings from that from those calls, and I remember we called maybe like 15,000 customers. I remember it was a quite of a big
I remember when this was happening. This was maybe a year or two before I actually got my foot in the door of the family business. And I remember we were one of the first companies in Jordan at the time that began doing professional CSR, CRM.
yeah.
Yeah. So we were the first, one of the few companies. And I didn't know that you were one of the ones who was spearheading it. But I remember that being a big deal.
Yeah, it was. And I remember it was like 25 people for like 8 weeks,
Yep.
full strong, calling these people and
Yep.
getting all kinds of. I remember there was a guy named Omar, I think, as well, that was there, that he was my client. And that was the first justification of the type of business that I actually started in Jordan, which was customer service based, which were, let's be honest, in the Middle East, Jordanians are not known for their customer service skills. We're not.
Which is funny because we are very hospitable people, but when
We
it
are.
comes to it's very weird, that juxtaposition of pride versus hospitality. It clashes a lot in our culture. I find it so weird.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. No, I gotta be honest with you. After 15 years running a customer service company, the people that we hire right now are way more customer oriented than we were 15 years ago. I
Right.
think it's just because it became very competitive, and they believe that not everybody can be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. Like,
Right.
and that's it. So, and now there's really good jobs in almost every vertical, and really technology really enabled a lot of these non-traditional professional business jobs to
Yeah.
really excel and create a job a career path for them. So but yeah, that was a nice side note, and I don't know if you knew, but then now you know, right? So working with the family business, how did you find it? And I'm guessing this is why you decided to say, you know what, I'm done with the family business. Like, what was the trigger, like, that made you say?
I'll tell you exactly what the trigger is. And usually I don't have a specific answer, but this I have a specific answer. I think I was on and off with the family business. We did, we do a number of things. We had a shipping company. I worked for the shipping company for a year. I did Mercedes-Benz for about 4 years. And last year I was marketing manager. One of these days, and I used to have lunch with my father regularly. I'd finish work, we'd go, we'd have lunch, we'd talk about work together. I remember going to him after about 6 years, and I looked at him. I'm like, Baba, is it normal that not one day do I wake up excited to go to work? He's like, honestly, no, no, that's not normal. I'm like, and I was truly honest with myself. I'm like, there has never been one day that I've woken up being like, yes, work time, let's go. Not one. And I always I did everything from after sales. I did marketing, I did sales, I did I worked in the garage for a few months, like everything that I could, and not one of those things struck me. So I finally asked him, like, is it normal? And he told me, no, it's not normal. And that's when the penny dropped, that maybe this isn't the corporate life isn't for me.
Yeah.
um but it took a lot of courage to get to that point, to admit to yourself that maybe this isn't for you. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, coming to that conclusion, being like, accepting that this may have been a mistake or a waste of time, because time is the commodity here. So you put 7 years into something. It's almost like a marriage. You put 7 years into it and it's not working. You're still going to waste another 7 years trying to make it work, because you've already spent 7 years on it. So for me, I'm like, did I waste all this time? Turns out no, because everything that I had learned in retrospect is actually useful for me today. But that was the point when I'm like, something's got to give, something's got to change.
So there's 2 points here I'd like to, throw my hat in the ring, as they say.
It's
Uh,
a nice hat, though.
you like it, right?
I do like it. It's a nice hat. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about my hat collection later, but I do
Sure.
quite a hat collection. Um, so, 2 things that I really want to mention is, there's something in when you read in entrepreneurship, by the way, and it's something maybe you might not know, but there's a 7-year itch where
Mm,
you're in a same place for 7 years. You start questioning yourself, but it's
mm,
also very entrepreneurial, saying, because like myself right now as an entrepreneur, the last maybe 10 years of my life,
mm,
I could not commit to a project for more than 2.5 to 3 years. There's no way, because
mm,
I'm the kind of guy who builds and moves on, right? Like I don't have a thing where I have to grow it to like 100 million, or like none of that. Like I enjoy the whole journey of inception, the whole journey of looking for it. And that's what I really enjoy. And again, a lot of people, you ask them, why do you work? And they say, the money.
yeah.
For me, it was never the money. It was always about the journey. And if you're good at it, money will come in as a result, right?
Sure.
So
Sure.
that's the mentality. And a number two is what I've also learned. I started my first company when I was my first real company, which is the call center company I talked about. I was 27 years old, and
Yeah.
and I learned one thing that I actually had it written on my laptop, like a sticker. Back then, even as an entrepreneur, we didn't even have our own offices. I had to share my offices with my co-founders,
Yeah.
and it had like something super corny, but I still love it to this day. I say, do what you love and love what you do. When you wake up every day without an alarm or somebody, like, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
you're fired up. You get up.
Yeah.
You do
Yeah.
your thing. That is the feeling that I got, and I vowed to myself, the second I lose that feeling, is the
Yeah.
second I need to move on to the next project. And this is what
Right.
what right now kind of really redefined how I do things, at least. So that's,
Yeah.
again, I don't want anybody who's listening to the show to get up and leave their jobs and blame me for anything. Just a lot of them were very well orchestrated and well thought out before I actually, like, I didn't just, I don't feel it today, I'm just gonna quit. No, no, it wasn't like that at all. But
Yeah.
it's funny that you mentioned that, because that is a definition, like, for my opinion, is a lot of the entrepreneurs have, um, that I've worked with, had the same exact feeling, but then had a passion thing, saying, okay, but I can improve this by doing that. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
So did you
But
ever have that feeling?
I mean, yeah, I again, it was a 7 years of doing the family business, and not one day did I wake up excited. Then I spent a year off, and then I just, as because I knew somebody who knew that I was fairly eloquent and I was fairly entertaining, I went and I asked, do you need a temporary radio show? And they're like, sure, I know you, I know you're funny, I know you can speak well, I know you know music, I'll give you a shot. That actually kickstarted a radio career of 7 years. The funny thing is that at the end of those 7 years, I had reached a top. I had reached a ceiling. I had reached a personal ceiling where there had been no personal growth, as well as a few other issues as well. Some trauma, some tragedy, some life things that happened that basically all put together we're like, no, I think I'm done with this. I think it's time for something else. But I kept on going in the same direction. So even though it was like radio may have been done, at least the next step into a master's degree in digital media was along the same directions, but it was opening up doors into much different venues, like Twitch, for example.
Yeah, and you know what? And that you need that firepower, because that fire really motivates you even to do better on not even in work related, family life,
Right, right.
staying connected, because I know when somebody has already been down is because the eyes become very glossy, and they're like,
Right.
and then you talk about the people who are being burned out,
Yeah.
and it's not only work related, by the way. People are sometimes burnt out by a social life. Like I knew a couple of people who give a lot of their time to the community, and they're
Yeah.
physically burned out and
Yeah.
mentally burnt out. So we're talking about burnout. So how are you coping with all this pandemic thing? Like,
Well, that's the thing. Like, I didn't really know what to do. I finished my degree. For my master's thesis, I created and I spent a lot of time working on the three-part episode of potentially a much wider issue, which is traveling while Arab, which is my podcast, which talked about the use of technology to restrict the free movement of Arabs in the Western world. And I reached out to people I didn't know. I spent a lot of time producing it, researching it, narrating it, writing it, everything from scratch from that beginning. So as soon as I finished that, I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now? And at that point, COVID was just starting to like rear its head. A few months of just kind of like sitting and twiddling my thumbs and not knowing, I realized, well, I'm a content creator and right now I'm not creating content. What's the next best thing that I can do? I started a Twitch channel. And then the funny thing is that it started off with me basically streaming my PlayStation 4 to my MacBook, which is the worst thing that you can use in this kind of medium, but whatever. And then basically 3 months later, I have a brand new Alienware PC, three
it's
screens,
okay.
lighting, background, and networking, and created my own Discord channel that has 250 people on it. And I learned more skills over the past 5 months than I did over a year of getting a registered digital media degree, because it just started off as I'll test it. And then you know what? It turned out to be fun. Not only that, this month it actually has gone towards paying my rent, which I never even thought was going to be the possibility for me. It was literally a question of basically like, I need to make sure that I am creating content. So on my CV, it makes sense that I can call myself a content creator.
Yep.
But it has been a huge source of release for me during COVID. And was very lucky that I had this space in my basement. It was just a room we weren't using, that I was able to turn into this makeshift studio. So I did get lucky, but I did use the time wisely in the sense that now's not the time to be looking for me, it's not the time to be looking for employment, in-person employment. In fact, the market right here in Toronto is not very good. The employment rates are also, and they're going towards Canadian citizens as well. So I knew I had to rely on myself and not just kind of like sit here and wait it out. So, I mean, that was the effect that COVID has had. In a way, it kind of kickstarted my creativity for this project particularly. But it's been tough. Like the burnout, the day-to-day burnout, and not being able to see my family and not being able to leave, that has also been extremely challenging. And I think worldwide, because this is unprecedented. We've never had to deal with this before. And can you imagine if this had happened 20 years ago, when we wouldn't be able to go on a call and talk to each other like this, and we'd be sending, literally ringing people using a dial telephone and being like, sure, mama, how are you? I miss you. Like, we're so lucky that this happened now.
Yeah.
that we can channel our frustration into different ways of using digital media, creating YouTube videos, creating this, doing Twitch, having Zoom calls, staying connected. Like, we're lucky that it happened now.
Yeah. Agreed. No, agreed. It's like especially not only on a communication level, even a work level. Like
Exactly. Yeah. And it's funny, there's this big ongoing joke about how basically, that job that they told you it was essential for you to be there in person. Well, turns out you didn't have to be there in person, actually. Everyone's like, corporations, But
like
it's true. Everyone's getting their shit done from home. Everybody's working. Everybody's producing, Yeah, we're producing with a little bit of frustration because we don't know. It's that not knowing that makes things so difficult. If we had said precisely on June 21st, the world will go back to normal, people will be like, oh, fine, all right. But because we don't know, that's where the issue lies, is that we're all kind of like waiting. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think, technically the pandemic has been going on for a year and 2 months, almost like full swing.
Yeah.
When we're recording this. And I think the first couple of months that everybody was like working extra hard or, getting
Right.
Zoom calls. And then I think people, they settled to finding their groove.
Yeah.
And as you said, like, we didn't have an end date, so they were like, yeah, let's
Right.
see how we're gonna write this out, and
Right.
that's
right.
when like there is a term called Zoom fatigue now, because
Yeah.
I remember in the beginning I was on calls from literally 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. with not even like a lunch period, because it was call after call, while in the office, between meetings you can just drop by and pick up
The water cooler talks and stuff.
water cooler talks.
Yeah.
Seeing somebody, and you're walking in like, oh yeah, I need to tell you something, and you walk in and tell them. I have to tell you, COVID and the whole lockdown was an introvert dream, but
oh yeah,
but an extrovert's nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I'm okay with it. Like, I'm fine with it. I'll be the most outgoing person on ever if I'm out or if I'm talking to you on a call. But then chances of the matter is I'll spend 5 hours literally not saying a word to anyone and just kind of like pulling back that energy as an introvert. But it's true. Like, when things go back to normal, everybody has to reshuffle the decks again.
Yeah, it's adding another layer to our like the human interaction.
Right.
Now you're like,
right.
I can work from home. And people say, come back to the office. Do I really have to come back to the office?
Yeah, man, I'm better at home. I'm good.
Okay, so I do something with all of my guests where I ask them a curveball question, and I'm going to ask you the same question. I think you'll do really well with this. So I ask everybody, if you had to mimic a superhero, who would it be? Or if you had a superpower, what would that be?
It's funny. I don't know. First of all, I gotta say, I'm not a huge superhero fan. I'm a nerd, but for some reason, the comics part of things never really grabbed me. I'm more like a Frank Herbert Dune kind of nerd, if you will. But I mean, it's funny. Like, I did think about this. I really want to be the Hulk. Like, okay. I just want excessive strength to be able to walk into a room where everyone's like, "Oh shit, he's here," like, and ultimately, knowing that I am generally a very, very nice guy, but I think that's something that's gotten under my skin a lot the older that I've gotten, and I kind of look back on times when people took advantage of me because I was the calm and timid and sort of like non-confrontational person. I think maybe I would like to emulate more of the Hulk in me, is that like, if you do cross the line, that's it. I don't care. I will smash everything in front of me, like, just to prove a point. But I don't know. I think that's more of an internal thing that I need to learn about myself, because I control myself a little too well. I want to be able to let loose a lot more and be like, no, you know what you did was wrong, and I'm upset by that. And it works in a business aspect as well. The amount of times I didn't step up in the workplace and be like, that's not my responsibility, or you know what I mean, or I actually think I did really good at this, and all of a sudden I'm being used as a scapegoat because somebody else messed up. Like, there are moments where I'd be like, oh, I should have done that. And if I were the Hulk at that time, I think I would have been able to, that would have been the right reaction, as opposed to remaining calm and remaining like clear-headed. Sometimes you need a little bit of passion.
I agree. You know what? And I've never heard anybody saying, I want to be the Hulk, so you'd be my
Yes, I want to be Captain America.
And I think, what you just said also resonates tremendously with me, because I'm usually generally viewed as the nice guy in the office, and people
Yeah.
will say, Abe will do it. But being nice doesn't mean I'm stupid. Do you get what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
but I do 100% know what you're coming from. So
Yeah.
sometimes and you play that scenario in your head. Maybe I should have smashed something. Maybe I should have
Yeah.
hit the table. You know what I mean? Like,
But it's funny. The older that I get, the more I'm able to call out the bull crap. Like
yeah,
the older that I get, the more I'm able to be, "Oh, wait, 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 wait. And you stop people and you're like, no, that's not what happened. And that's not what I said. And that's not what you meant. But it does come with experience, and it does come with knowing that not every single workplace is going to be is going to be a nurturing workplace. There
sure.
is such thing as a toxic workplace, and the more you work, the more you will be able to start sussing out, okay, this it works for me, this doesn't work for me.
And energy of people. Some
Yeah,
people.
100%.
I mean, like some people are just negative, and some people are
Yeah.
positive and just try to get away from it. All right, would you like to tell my audience one final thing before we wrap up?
Life throws things at you, and sometimes you don't understand why that happened, and sometimes you sit there and you wallow and you go, woe is me. But sometimes after 10 years you look back and you be like, well, actually that may have happened for a reason, and I'm glad that happened because I got to look back at it. And like even me today, like as difficult as things are in this COVID time, because we experienced so many difficult things in the past, like now we have a reference as to, what, actually in comparison to other people and in comparison to things that happened to me in the past, we're doing okay. Like there is a balance to look back on, and to always look forward and be like, if things are really bad now, know that it's not necessarily going to last too long. You will keep growing, you will keep evolving, you will keep changing. I don't think there's a time limit to be able to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I know that the progression of me as a person and as a professional has been profound over the past few years, and all you have to do is look a few years back and compare yourself to who you are now, not where you are, but who you are. I think may sound like a bit of foff, and perhaps it is, but but there is an element of truth to that, is that we always have to be mindful of the things that have happened in the past.
No, I agree. Who you are. I don't think anybody knows how to answer that question, and that's all.
Yeah, exactly, and it will change.
Yeah, 100%. So, well, anyway, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really want to thank you for coming in. We do have a hashtag. It's called hashtag Real Talk No Nonsense. Until next time, everybody, tune in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abe.